Michael Altiero, how you doing? Rick Hay, how are you doing? Film Core, how are you doing? Kurt Howell, how are you doing? A lot of new names I'm seeing for the first time. Want to say welcome aboard. Thanks for being here. Charles Ferraro, what's up, buddy? Lieutenant Colonel, got a salute for you as well. How you doing? Abdul Sattar, how you doing? Okay, Sovereign Borders, how you doing? News Junkie, how you doing? Just want to check how's the sound for you guys. Too soft, too loud, everything all right? Film Core, yes. Markets have opened. Sovereign Borders, good. Michael Altero, okay, perfect. Okay, we're starting up in just a bit. I hope you guys all had a great weekend out there, getting ready for another work week. Monday's around the corner. For some of you, it's already Monday morning. For others, it's Sunday night in the wee hours. And for others, it is Sunday night and we're, I suppose, in your football time. But hello again, everyone, and how you all doing? Welcome to another edition of Silver Bullion Television, SBTV. I'm your host, Patrick Vieira, and this is our weekly live stream. Glad you could all make it here. Once again, if you are new to this channel or have not already done so, please do subscribe. Click on the bell to be notified on updates, and do give us a thumbs up. We appreciate it, and it really does help us out quite a bit. And also, we are on social media, as many of you know. You can find us at www.silverbullion.com.sg. This is our website where you can go ahead and buy and sell precious metals as well as store precious metals. You can also find us on Facebook, Silver Bullion SG, Twitter at Silver Bullion PL once again for private limited. The audio versions can be found on SBTV iTunes, SBTV Spotify, and you can join our Telegram group, SB Crisis Tracker. I'll have to get the URL for that so I can post it up for you guys if you want to join in on Crisis Tracker. So again, Monday morning, markets have opened in Singapore. We'll go ahead and take a look at that shortly. Lieutenant Colonel Rod Brumley, how you doing, sir? Glad you could make it. Cyber PM's going up. PM's, yeah, they had a little bit of a beat down, as I call it, last week. I think it was because Trump had said that the October trade meetings are on, and so naturally the market's going to react. And it's amazing how markets will react just to what people say. I still think that markets events really can control and move the markets. And the closer these events are together and the more frequencies of these events, I think the more and more we're going to see markets, or especially PMs, go up. So we'll get that call right. LT Flying, how you doing? Max Strong, how you doing? Mouse Billy, watching from New Zealand, Kyoto. Thank you for being here. Abdul Sattar, another Trump pump. You got anything better? Let us know. Anthony Ulfig, this week we get past 20. Yeah, I'm hoping on that too. I'm really hoping. I told the guys in the office we're going to be looking at the ratio of 75. So I mean, back down to what did I tell them? Yeah, I told them 75. I think I'm gonna have a hard time with that one now. But glad y'all can be here. So let's go ahead and take a look at what's going on with silver and gold and look at their prices. So again, this is our website. We're now taking Australian dollar, Hong Kong dollar, and British pound. So we're starting to take a few different currencies. Also, our storage program, there's a 75 off transfer in charges. So if you folks are thinking about storing with us, which you should, it's a good idea. We're gonna have a 75% discount on transfer in fees. That includes parcelization. It includes the ducts testing, the density ultrasound, and X-ray testing to make sure that all your gold and silver is really gold and silver. And then once all that's passed, then you can, of course, go into our peer-to-peer program where you can, if you want, take out a loan against what you have, use it as collateral, and go ahead and redeploy your investment. So taking a quick look, silver 1825. It's up a little, hanging in there. Gold 1508, hanging in there. And nickel went up past 18,000. I think it went all the way to 18.5. Came back down a bit, but markets are starting to move, and looks like it's on the uptick. Silver gold ratio, we were in the 79 range last week, and we kind of retreated a bit back into the 83 range. Now we're back under 83. So I think that's depending on which side of the fence you're on, that's it can be a good thing. Buy the dip. I think we're fortunate. We were well over $19 an ounce, and we came all the way back down to 18. So definitely buy the dip if you can. Um, buy it. Okay, let's see. Yeah, we also take Canadian dollars as well. So I think hopefully people up in Canada will find that useful for them. We're glad we could do it. Let's see. Sovereign borders, it's not even a done deal yet, and the markets are reacting ridiculous. Yes, markets, they react on a whisper nowadays. They react on they react on anything except probably the real and true fundamentals, which is a bit disturbing sometimes. Victor Vasco from Puerto Rico saying hi, buenos noches. How you doing out in Puerto Rico? Let's see, Rockwell A. Brutel, Trump supporter. Silver is what I. Yeah, silver also. Silver is what I'm buying. Uh, thank you, Rockwell. Appreciate it. Yeah, cyber. Silver swings wildly 1926 and 1832. Silver's, I mean, it's a more volatile metal than gold. I might be misunderstanding what you're saying, but silver is definitely more volatile, and that uh, part of it is because it's a smaller market than gold. Okay, so taking a look at some of the news, some pretty interesting things came out. Venezuela gold reserves dropped by 1 billion in first half of 2019. Okay, so what's going on there? Hang on, let me get that. Sorry about that. Over in Caracas, gold reserves held by Venezuela Central Bank fell by 1 billion in the first half of 2019, according to official data released this week, amid opposition accusations that the government is selling the precious metal abroad to raise revenue in the face of US sanctions. Okay, that's one other consequence of sanctions. Sometimes you have to find other alternatives to the USD. The value of gold bars in central bank vaults fell to 4.62 billion, down 18.5%, the lowest in 75 years, according to bank data. Opposition leaders have for months accused the government of President Nicolas Maduro of withdrawing gold to sell abroad as U.S. financial sanctions have crippled oil exports and blocked it from borrowing abroad. The drop corresponds to a decline of 26 tons from gold reserves, leaving the bank with about 102 tons. About one third of that is held by the Bank of England. Now, I think a lot of you guys remember the Bank of England refused to repatriate Venezuela's gold. So this is going to be interesting to see how it how it plays out. Uh, okay, nonetheless, let's see. C3PO, hello from San Francisco. Anthony, my friends in Argentina are seeing real reason to hold precious metals. Though they said it's dangerous there to own such a thing, they keep their money in US dollars. Yeah, a few weeks back when we did the when we took a look at Argentina, that is one of the things that we saw where people were converting their Argentine dollars into or their Argentine pesos into to USD. They were even buying automobiles, basically because hyperinflation is starting to set in, if not already, where they feel they need to put their paper money into something that they hope can store the value of their paper money. So Argentina, that's going to be something else that's going to be pretty interesting as things start to unfold. I think they recently defaulted again. So anyway, Venezuela is selling gold, and we take a look at Russia, who is buying more gold. Their gold reserves scale from new highs in growing shift from US dollar. So Russia has been stockpiling gold bullion in recent years in an attempt to lessen its economy reliance on the US dollar, with forecasts showing the country's gold and foreign exchange reserves are set to outstrip those of Saudi Arabia. And this is whole a part of that whole de-dollarization plan where countries are moving off the US dollar. So Russia's gold bullion stockpiles are now worth 109 billion according to the central bank, and it's a push to steer growing international reserves away from the US dollar. So again, just like we mentioned, they are trying to get off the US dollar. Let me scroll down a bit. Russia has been increasing its reserves of the precious metal in recent years while selling off its US Treasury securities. So that might be interesting if they're selling those securities and then using those proceeds to go ahead and buy gold, perhaps, right? Who knows? It would make sense, though, right? The country used to be one of the largest investors in U.S. debt, while according to July data, these reserves have dipped to 12 billion, their lowest since 2007. Russia is one among several states promoting a shift from the dollar to national currencies in bilateral trade, as Moscow previously criticized the U.S. for abusing the reserve status of its currency. So again, these are the things that we're seeing now. A lot of countries feel U.S. is reserving, abusing their position as the reserve dollar, and they're looking to get off it. And again, part of this goes back to that. Let's call it the petrodollar, created back in '74. Again, at that time, the U.S. was the biggest oil importer, Saudi Arabia the biggest oil exporter. This is almost 50 years later now. I think we're at 45 years. Almost 50 years later, the U.S. is not the biggest importer anymore. Saudi is not the largest exporter anymore, I don't believe. Other countries are importing quite a bit more now. And so naturally, that petrodollar deal is going to have to be changed somewhat. And if the US doesn't take the time to restructure it and change, other countries are going to do it for them, which is what we're seeing with some of this de-dollarization. Okay, let's see. Cyber, Russia has virtually no debt and they don't need dollars to buy oil. They got plenty. It's true. I agree. Completely agree with that. Uh, Film core, other world currencies are devalued against the USD. To the question of, okay, I'm American and trust precious metals more than dollars, Thomas Toops. I agree on all fronts. I've lost a lot of faith in the US dollar. Um, but sadly, I think what I've lost more faith in besides the US dollar are US politicians. I think really they've done such a disservice over the years and years and years. And it's not just to its own citizens, but to the world as well. And as such, that kind of leads me to the next article that I found over the web, where is the Fed preparing to topple the U.S. dollar? So this is coming out from Global Research. Excuse me, Global Research. Unusual markets, excuse me, unusual remarks and actions by the outgoing head of the Bank of England and other central banking insiders strongly suggest that there is a very ugly scenario in the works to end the role of the US dollar as the world reserve currency. In the process, this would involve that the Fed deliberately triggers a dramatic economic depression. If this scenario is actually deployed in coming months, Donald Trump will go down in history as the second Herbert Hoover, and the world economy will be pushed into the worst collapse since the 1930s. Okay, so it's an opinion, so let's not get our feathers ruffled yet. This is just an opinion. But in the speech, the about to retire head of the very special Bank of England, Mark Carney, delivered a remarkable speech at the recent annual meeting of central bankers and finance elites at Jackson Hole, Wyoming, this past August. A 23-page address to fellow central bankers and financial insiders is clearly a major signal where the powers that be who run the world's central banks plan to take the world. So he goes, what Carney goes on to say is a destabilizing asymmetry at the heart of the IMFS, or International Monetary and Financial System, is growing. While the world economy is being reordered, the US dollar remains as important as when Bretton Woods collapsed. He states bluntly, in the longer term, we need to change the game. Risks are building and they are structural. What he then goes on to outline is a remarkably detailed blueprint for global central bank transformation of the dollar, a revolutionary shift. Carney discusses the fact that China, as the world leading trading nation, is the obvious candidate to replace the dollar as the leading reserve. However, he notes for the renminbi to become truly global, much more is required. Moreover, history teaches that the transition to a new global reserve currency may not proceed smoothly. That's the part that stuck with me. Uh, History teaches that the transition to a new global reserve currency may not proceed smoothly. And you guys know who follow me. I often talk about the transition. We're going to transition from the current monetary system to a new monetary system, and that transition is key. That's what's going to make or break a lot of us. And when I see statements like this, history teaches that the transition to a new global reserve currency may not proceed smoothly. That's the part we need to really saddle up and silver up on. We got to get ready for that transition. I mean, we can't assume it's going to be a smooth one, right? Hey, looking at some of the comments here. Maduro is not a gangster. The U.S. is. You know, it's kind of harsh words, but I'm going to have to be open minded here and agree somewhat with that. Um, that is somewhat true. We U.S. has abused its reserve currency status somewhat, and it's all starting to unfold now. Cyber central banks, they try to shift the blame to Trump for screwing the economic system. In reality, being their fault. Paper money systems always go bust. Sound money is a must. Everybody wants a scapegoat, right? I mean, we're always looking for someone to blame nowadays. And central bank. I mean, I'm not going to say Donald Trump has done everything right. I'm not going. I'm He hasn't done everything wrong either. But central banks, they do have a role to play in this, and I would keep that compass squarely pointed at the central banks in this case. Let's see. What is happening with this Pax Gold? Is that a game changing PM back token? Pax Gold, you know what? We we looked into that Pax Gold, and there was some guy, he went and looked at the white paper, and there were some things that were kind of disturbing about about Pax Gold. It if I can find that white paper, or if Vincent's out there, if he's listening, if you can find that white paper, I think Brian, he not Brian, but I think somebody went and showed that white paper. It's online. Anybody can view it, but there was something kind of disturbing with it. But everybody has their own opinion, right? Maybe some people might not find it disturbing. So if Vincent's out there, or if they can find that article, and then just post the URL for that Pax Gold, the one, some guy went ahead and looked at the white paper, and then he found some of the code in there that was a bit disturbing. Appreciate it. Um, Continuing, in truth, there's absolutely no need for a world reserve currency. You know, I I sort of agree with that. For me, it's more about if you have some kind of backing, sound money. If you have some kind of backing, then I may be okay with it. But like you, I've grown up having a world reserve currency, so I don't know what not having one is like. And to be honest, I don't know what not having the US dollar as a world reserve currency is like either. So I wouldn't know. But for me, I feel much more comfortable if there's backing to it. So one other thing I found, BlackRock had something pretty interesting to say, and they are eyeballing, seriously eyeballing two metals, and it's two metals I think you might find pretty agreeable to.
If you were to choose a commodity now, and I know we're going to talk about more global themes, but if you were to choose a commodity that will outperform the others in the next 12 months, what would it be?
Well, we've seen incredibly strong performance from precious metals over the last few months. And I think that if you look at the macro picture, we've just been talking about the global economy, but if you look at some of the measures that are coming into place, we've now got in excess of $17 trillion of government debt trading with negative yields. We're seeing even corporate debt moving into negative yield territory. And for us as an investor in things like precious metals, and in particular gold, when we start to see the opportunity cost of owning gold and holding gold move into an opportunity carry, that's a very positive environment. We're also seeing similar supply and demand characteristics in gold that we're seeing in other commodities. In fact, stronger demand probably for gold than we're seeing in some of the other spectrum. And likewise, we're also seeing that kind of supply picture being supportive as well. So our bias right now is towards the precious metals and in particular gold, where we have seen this strong performance. Outside of that, we've seen very strong moves in nickel, and that's because of the Indonesian ban on exports, and that is building towards a supply shortage starting in 2020 when export bans come into place. So I think those two commodities look well set to deliver strong profitability to the underlying producers.
Gold and nickel. Gold and nickel. Yes, we've been talking about those two metals amongst silver as well, but nickel has been doing some pretty incredible things so far this year. Okay, let me click on this here and see if this is the correct link. I'll, okay, hang on, guys. This is a bit tiny here. Okay, yeah, I don't think I can make this any larger. But hang on. Let me see if I can get it to be a bit larger. Unfortunately, that's it. But if you can, go ahead and click on that link, and then you're going to find what I'm talking about as far as that Pax Gold thing, and this, it's not us, has nothing to do with us. This is some guy who went ahead and took a look at the white paper, and those were some of the things that he found. So it's, you might want to go ahead and take a look at it. Let's see. If no world reserve currency, international trade would be more difficult. If the manipulation of banks is gone, it might work. That's there's some truth in that also. I'd have to agree somewhat with that as well. Sterling cannabis. Hey, cool name. Okay. Thomas Tubes. It is wise for U.S. residents to separate their nickels from their change. Nickels are the only U.S. coin that hasn't been debased, and their metal value is growing. That's true, but I think we need to check on the newer Thomas Jefferson, especially the newer Thomas Jefferson nickels. I think they actually did debase it somewhat, so may want to check on that. Another thing being, in a sense, debased is your pensions. And this is what I'm going to be spending more or less the rest of the time talking about pensions. Um, we've been hearing that it's in a bit of trouble here and there from different people, and but I knew I never fully understood it. In fact, I still may not, but I did a bit of work on it, looking into it, and I tell you what, I think it's a bigger problem any of us ever realize, and it's not just the U.S. problem. This is pensions just about anywhere in the world. So, but regarding, let's say, the U.S. right now, we're at about 5.2 trillion of government pension debt, which threatens to overwhelm state budgets and taxpayers. This is coming from Forbes. So Pension Tracker, a project of the Stanford Institute of Economic Policy Research, led by former California State Assemblyman Joe Nation, PhD, is without its updated assessment of the nation's unfunded state and local government pension fund liabilities. I want to stop here. When what happened was a lot of corporate, private sector, they gave up on, not gave up, but they shifted from pensions to things like 401ks. But the government stayed with pensions. And frankly speaking, a pension is a promise. That's all it is. It's a promise that we're going to pay you later on. Whereas a 401k, you money goes in every month. You get your statement. You can do things with it if you would like to. A pension is not entirely that flexible, but basically a pension is a promise from a government, not not entirely a comfortable thing, right? It's not a pretty picture, especially if you live in Alaska, California, Connecticut, or Illinois, where your per household pension debt ranges from 102,000 to 76,000. Household pension debt. Okay, state and local governments, including public schools, either pay into Social Security just as private sector employers do, or they run their own pension systems. If you're a government getting this money, you're not going to want to give it up, right? So they will run their own pension systems. Or even sometimes, if you're a union, you're going to want to try and run it on your own. As with anything government does, there are increasingly large stakes in the outcome as government gets bigger and more powerful. This is no different with pensions for government employees, where powerful government employee labor unions controlling more than $1 billion of annual spending at the federal, state, and state level lobby elected officials to increase the value of their members' pensions. Okay, so their members want more pensions, or they're trying to get more pensions for their members. But in the end, we're going to have to wonder, well, who's going to pay for all this, right? And we had a Dr. Mark Faber on a while back. He's even concerned about pensions. It's not too deep, but this was his comment on pensions. In a recent interview this year, Warren Buffett, he called the state of public pensions in the U.S. a disaster. And he also said he will avoid relocating or invest heavily in states that have large underfunded pension liabilities. Do you agree with his assessment of public pensions, and are public pensions today sustainable?
Well, they are in principle sustainable, provided the states increase the revenues of their pension funds. You understand? As it stands now, they are underfunded. What it means is they don't have enough money in the kitty to cover their liabilities, their future liabilities. They can continue to make payments for maybe another 10, 20 years, but obviously, the longer the underfunded condition lasts, the worse it becomes.
The longer it lasts, the worse it becomes, and we're gonna see that. Let me see here. Jack Robert, yes, pensions are inflated away. 401k is killed in markets. That's a good point, Jack. The thing is, as we say here quite a bit, 401k, you do have an option though. That same 401k that's gone up because of the stock markets, it's the same 401k that's going to go down because of the stock markets, more than likely anyway. Now, again, disclaimer: this is not financial advice, but do go ahead and check. There are companies out there that can help you roll your 401k or part of it into a precious metals IRA. That way, for the same reasons you buy gold and silver today, because you understand that there's going to be a fiat event. Your 401k needs to be protected as well. Right now, it probably isn't, which is why taking a look at a precious metals 401k may be a good idea, where you can take some of that off the table, put it in precious metals, and protect yourself the same way as you're doing right now. So, do go ahead and just take a look. Take a look into it. Demographics means more old. That is true. We're getting older. The young employment for younger people is starting to be a very difficult thing for them. A quick Google search says nickels are still 25%. Okay, great. Thanks. Appreciate that. Okay. Thomas Jason Boone, I'm fairly sure. Okay, Jason, I'll take your word for it. We may double check as well, but as if it does have some nickel in it, it may be a good thing. But also the thing to remember is there are two types of nickel, class 1 and class 2. Class 2 nickel is used more for, let's just say, construction, stainless steel, nickel pig iron, things like that. The class 1 nickel is used more for batteries. It's a little bit of a different type of nickel that works well for batteries for, let's say, electric vehicles, uh, power bank walls, things like that. So that nickel, it there's going to be an increase in electric vehicles. They're going to need more nickel for those batteries, and right now they're having a little bit of a concern about where they're going to get that supply from. So what Faber said is true. Let's take a look at Illinois. For example, we've all been hearing, Illinois, their financial decay is spreading to cities across the state. So this article came out from Zero Hedge recently, where Illinois finances aren't just decaying at the top; they're falling apart everywhere. And I think the media has gone kind of silent on this. I mean, it was a topic, and then it went kind of silent. But the state's one size fits all pension laws are overly generous, and overly generous benefits have left many cities suffocating under impossible pension debts as their populations shrink, tax burdens jump, and resident incomes stagnate. So without an amendment, amendments, they're not, sometimes they can be dangerous things, but without an amendment to the Illinois Constitution's pension protection clause and subsequent pension reforms, expect many cities to head toward insolvency. What really does that mean when a city becomes insolvent? How's that possible, right? So the map below shows just how wide and deep the crisis is. Of the 630 downstate police and fire pension funds that reported data to the Illinois Department of Insurance in 2017, 57% had funded ratios lower than 60%, and nearly 100 funds had funded ratios below 40%. That's some pretty big numbers. So these are some of the cities spread out through Illinois that are really having some concerns with their pensions. What's worse, the downstate pension decline has occurred during one of the nation's longest ever bull runs. Now that's the thing. A bull run, you would expect those pensions to do better, but apparently they're not. So if Illinois' public safety pensions are doing this poorly in a great economy, imagine their struggles during an eventual downturn. So we can see here the funding ratio, it's low. They're underfunded. Um, Let me get to one more part here. Let's see if I can find it. Okay. Let me see. Real changes don't mean pension fund consolidations, or tax hikes. Consolidation may reduce administrative costs and increase investment returns, but it'll do nothing to reduce the pension shortfalls. Not only that, but there's the risk lawmakers will try to bail out cities by taking over or socializing all downstate pension funds. So we're seeing a word, socialize. Anybody's guess as to what that means, right? We're going to get a bit more into this. Let me take a quick look at the comments here. Um, so the collapse will come during Trump's term since he is the target of central bank blame. PM Ruckus, how you doing? I mean, it's hard to say. It's when it comes, it's just gonna come. I'm not sure if they really care who's the leader at the time, but it's gonna come. It's not a sustainable system. So conspiracy, non-conspiracy, whatever it is, the bottom line, it's not a sustainable system, and it's going to have to change. It's going to have to transition into a new monetary system, and this is the part where we need to we can take advantage of it. During that transition, it doesn't have to be a fearful thing. Joseph Godin, staying in your home is the last place you'll be. Maybe. Uh, Dan, 455 TX. Be sure to shop around for the best price on selling your silver. You know what? That's true. But the other thing, like what I say is, you need to what is your silver going to be worth as far as purchasing power? It's not necessarily just a dollar, or what monetary value someone's going to give you for it. I think it's more about what is everything else at also, relative to your silver going to be priced at. So that's something we need to look at. Can my silver buy me this? Can my silver buy me that? Uh, if you're going to get $300 for your ounce of silver and all you can get is a loaf of bread, you may not, depending on your situation. Uh, you may or may not wanna let go. So it depends where we're at. Socialize means still. Big Rob, New Zealand. Ah, I agree with that. Yeah, I agree with that. Um, I'm not. I mean, I'm a fan for everybody getting a fair shake, of course. Level of playing field and whatnot, and But if you worked for something, it's difficult just to give it up. It's something you worked for. You put your time in, and you know I there was a time I probably was the most liberal guy you'd ever come across, but I guess over time you all these idealistic values and ideas that you hope to come across, you start to realize, you know what's in my brain idealistically is not in the world realistically. And it's just a matter of, if you can somehow bring good ideas into the real world, great. But if you can't, it's not something where I'm right and everyone else is wrong. It's not that at all. It's just that you have to look at things around you and look forward from what you see, and move forward accordingly. And I think we're missing a lot of that today, where you don't find that we have too many moderate people where they can see something this way and they can see something that way, and make a decision somewhere in the middle. We rarely find that today. So anyway, from Illinois, went ahead and took a look, just what other states are in trouble beside Illinois. And we came across this article where the 5 states with the most underfunded public employee pensions. So many state government run pension plans are running short of the money needed to pay 100% of their retirement benefits. The state politicians have promised to teachers, police officers, firefighters, and other employees of state governments. Different methods of measurement led to different results. How short depends on the state and how you measure the amount of the shortfall. In October of 2018, Bloomberg's Danielle Moran tallied the total liabilities and the funded portion that applies to each state's public employee pension funds, finding that five states had funded less than 50% of the cost needed to pay for their promised, again, a pension is a promise, their promised state public employees pension benefits. Kentucky, New Jersey, Illinois, Connecticut, Colorado. You guys are all underfunded if you're in any of those states. More than 50% underfunded. So Straight away, you're probably wondering, well, what the heck are they doing with the money, right? That is probably the $1 million question. But another way to measure the shortfall is to calculate the amount of money that each individual state resident would have to cough up to fully fund the cost of providing state government employees with their retirement benefits promised to them by state politicians. There's our word again, promised. A pension is a promise. The chart below shows those figures as calculated from the 2018 pension funding data provided by Bloomberg and state population data from the U.S. Census Bureau. New Jersey, everyone there, you're going to have to cough out $16,000 to cover. Illinois, 10,000. Connecticut, 9,000, almost 10,000. These are pension liabilities per state resident. This is what each person in each state is going to have to cough up to cover somebody's pension. Alaska, just under 10,000. Colorado, under 10,000. Kentucky, 9,600. Hawaii, my home state, 9,000. I don't think you're going to get that from us. New Mexico, 7,000. The point is, every state here, people are going to have to pay something out to cover pensions, unless you want to move to Wisconsin or South Dakota. These two states they're covered 100%. They're 100% funded. So another one I found was the states where pensions are safe and where they're in trouble. So there's got to be places they are safe, right? Where we just saw Wisconsin and South Dakota surely looks safe, right? Kentucky has one of the worst pension plans in the country, but it's just been saved from getting even worse. The state, you gotta hear this one now. The state Supreme Court ruled against a reform law that would have cut benefits for public employees, including teachers, law enforcement, firefighters, social workers, and government workers. Under the law, workers hired between 2003 and 2008 would have to pay 1% of their salaries for retiree health insurance, and future teachers would no longer have a promised benefit from retirement to death. The court ruled the law, which had been folded into a sewage services bill. You see what they do? They will stick this basically in a pile of doo-doo bill, right? So they're trying to move over this pension reform of sorts and put it in a sewage services bill. Had not gotten public comment or testimony, of course, right? Who's going to be interested in sewage? Nor had state lawmakers enough time to consider it before it was passed. Famous Nancy Pelosi phrase, pass it and read it later, right? So here's something that basically went in a pile of doo-doo and was passed, and nobody really read it. And this is where things are today. Pretty amazing, right? Take a look at some of the comments. Magnum Force, looking at buying 20 ounce tonight, or would you all wait until the AM? That's a good question. Me personally, if I admit I'm a watcher sometimes, I will watch, but in the end, I think about it, and 2-3 years from now, I'm not really gonna care much if what I perhaps bought it at, if I felt in general the time was okay. I mean, it's not gonna matter to me 2-3 years from now. So I'm not sure how everyone else feels though. Let's see. I'm Tiger Roll. I'm wondering if we will get one more day down in silver, then jump in with both feet. You know, that's a good question. I wish I had a definite answer for you. All I can say is right now, the frequency of events that are happening in the world are getting tighter and tighter and closer, which means the fear in the market is going to translate into higher prices, or it should fundamentally anyway. So for me, if there was enough of a dip, I'm just going ahead and buy it. Like we were at, well into the $19 range. We came down to the lower $18 range. I would be I'd be happy with that. It may not be, it may go lower, I'm not sure, but overall I'd be pretty happy with that. Let's see. Tiger Roll, Magnum Force is saying I have a feeling it's on sale right now before another run up. I think it'll run up as well, but if it's at the so-called bottom right now, I'm not sure, but I'm pretty happy that it's come back down this low to where a lot of us can go ahead and buy that dip again. Uh, okay, so moving on, what we saw was state for state, pensions, and but then even though there are states that are safe, there are states that are getting worse, and they're going to make it worse for everyone. And the 15 states that are making it worse, that are going to make this pension crisis a whole lot larger, we know already. One is Colorado. Uh, Shortfall 118 billion. It's quite a bit. Minnesota, it's another state. They're having a shortfall 118 billion. A lot of these states also, they are going to have shortfalls. It may not be. It's some of them are projected shortfalls, which means even though it's a safe state today, not very far down the road, it's going to be a state that is not so safe and in quite a bit of trouble. So we see Massachusetts. That wasn't in the bottom five before, but they're here in as one of the states that can really get into trouble. Georgia is another one that can get into trouble. 143 billion shortfall. Michigan again, um, another one. 168. Pennsylvania, 223 billion. Pennsylvania, keep Pennsylvania in mind. We're going to come across something with Pennsylvania later. Florida. So all of these are basically short. New Jersey, we already know, is in trouble. Look at that, 248 billion. That's quite a bit. New York is heading towards trouble. $345 billion shortfall. And the thing is, like I say, it's not just this state's problem. It's such a big problem that it's everyone's problem. And this gentleman here, John Maldine, I believe. No, sorry, he's the author. Anyway, a decade ago, he pointed out that public pension funds were $2 trillion underfunded and getting worse. More than one person told me that I couldn't be right. We know today we're getting close to 6 trillion. They were correct. It was actually much worse. It has gotten to 2 trillion and much worse in just a few years. Note that we are talking here about a specific kind of pension defined benefit plans. They are usually sponsored by state, local governments, labor unions, and a number of private businesses. My sponsors haven't set aside the assets, need to pay the benefits they've promised to current and future retirees. They can delay the inevitable for a long time, but not forever. And forever is just around the corner. And that's something that Mark Faber was talking about. Um, so again, it's the same thing. A lot of underfunded states going on, and so the question I have here is, how do we turn around this great pension mess? Is it something that we can even fix? Is it something that we can fix? Personally, I don't think we can fix it already. I think it's too far gone. There's no way, unless they're gonna tax you and me even higher. But we know politicians aren't going to tax us because we simply will not put them back in office. So how do we turn it around? Uh, do we ask people who have pensions? We need to uh, take some of it back. We need you to be a good patriot for our country, which is in a economic mess right now. So we need you to do your duty as a patriot and take a pay cut in your pension. Are they gonna give us one of those lines? I mean, thing is, I don't think we can turn it around. I don't see anything out there that can turn it around unless they are going to raise our taxes, and I don't see them doing that as well. Uh, let's see. Big bro, New Zealand, when Brexit happens, watch PMs take a surge. I think you're right there. I'd agree with that. Let's see. Gary Gary Ramberg, where is the link to that article, please? Hang on. Let me know which one is that, Gary. Then I'll go ahead and copy and paste it for you. Let's see. Landscape lovers promise less. You know what? As simple as that, yes. Just promise less. Don't keep promising things that you have no idea on how you're going to fulfill it, or don't promise things on our future. Do not promise something that a generation or two or three is going to have to are going to have to pay. It's not fair to them, and it's not fair to us either. So that, as simple as that, don't make promises. I think that's the simplest way. But the thing is that, as I mentioned earlier, these pension problems, they're not just for the US. They're global. They're global. So if we thought the pension problem in the US was big, imagine a pension problem pretty much all over the world, and you'll see where we're at. Dreams of lengthy cruises and beach life may be just that, with 20 of the world's biggest countries facing a pension shortfall worth 78 billion. Social security systems, national pension plans, private sector plans, and individual retirement accounts are unfunded or underfunded across the globe. It's not just the US thing. We know it's happening in Europe as well. Pensions and insurance analysts at the bank said in a report, government services, corporate profits, or retirement benefits themselves will have to be reduced to make any part of the system work, which is what we just talked about. You're going to have to either take a cut or pay more taxes. Probably the two things that are at the top of the list. This poses an enormous challenge to employers, employees, and policymakers all over the world. How are we going to take care of the people that we promised things to, right? The total value of unfunded or underfunded government pension liabilities for 20 countries, according to OECD, wealthy countries, is 78 trillion. They included the UK, France, Germany, plus several others in Western and Central Europe, including the US, Japan, Canada, and Australia. It's pretty much all Western countries, right? Uh, what's going on with the West? Why are these problems always inherently with the West? The bank added that corporates also failed to consistently meet their pension obligations, with most US and UK corporate pension plans underfunded. Countries with large public pension systems in Europe appear to have the greatest problem. Germany, France, Italy, the UK, Portugal, and Spain had estimated public sector pension liabilities that topped 300% of gross domestic product. Forget about trade wars and trade deals and unbalanced trade. With 300% of GDP, that's we can't even pay our own people anywhere in the world. What's that? I mean, this is pretty disturbing when you think about it, right? All these promises that are made, and people, when they get older, they're depending on it, and it's just not there. What does a person does when he's now 60, 70, 80? He can't actually go back to work and did what he once did and get that same pay. I mean, unlikely, correct? But improvements in healthcare means retirees need to string out their income for longer. Meanwhile, the increase in the retirement age population versus the working population is straining government pension schemes. What scheme would that be? Ponzi scheme where we need more people to come in to fulfill the obligations for the people at the top? Kind of seems that way sometimes, right? Okay, several countries, including the UK, France, and Italy, are gradually hiking retirement ages. Are you getting that? You thought you're going to retire at 65. Maybe we'll make you work till you're 75. Maybe we'll make you work till you're 80. And then you can get your pension. Are you guys seeing that? Citi recommended that governments explicitly link the retirement age to expected longevity. So, how many years are they going to let us enjoy retirement? 5, 10? I tell you, it's getting pretty severe. It also advised that government-funded pensions should serve merely as a safety net, rather than the prime pension provider. That the corporate pension should be opt out rather than opt in to encourage greater enrollment. Um, Pension problem. It's a global problem. How do we get here? I mean, now they're asking us to work longer. If we're supposed to live to 80, maybe they're going to make us work to what, 70, 75. Doesn't leave us much time to enjoy the fruits of our labor, right? What are they going to do? Tax us more? They're going to give us less, or they're going to make us work to an older age. I'm kind of curious how you guys feel about that. Uh, Going to the comments. NWO, see something, say something. NWO, New World Order. They want to destroy America. Well, I tell you what, I think we're doing a pretty good job of that ourselves sometimes. It's the fabric of the nation is it's getting frayed. It's unraveling, and we need to basically be awake and to understand what's going on. Um, they want us to work till we drop. Elbow Sanchez, how you doing, buddy? Yeah, basically that's what it is. They want you to work until you drop. Uh, Ponzi scheme for sure. Yeah. Anthony Pretlow, first time I've seen you here. Welcome aboard. Watch The Family on Netflix if you want to learn what's going on. Okay, will do. I'll watch The Family. Let's see. Cyber, the only thing that does great in inflation and deflation is gold. During the Great Depression, gold mining stocks went up 500%. You can't deny that. If it's the best or not, yeah, I mean, people have different opinions, but you can't deny what gold does. And I'm all on board with gold, all on board with silver. This will be the greatest depression. Yeah, I don't think we're gonna see anything like this. But pensions are a global problem. How did we get here? Blue Hawaii, how you doing, buddy? I'm going to play 3 clips from Real Vision, and try not to get upset after you watch these 3 clips, okay? Because you're going to learn quite a lot about pensions. I learned quite a lot about it, and try not to get too steamed. So I'm going to roll these clips for you. They're short, like about a minute each. Yours.
Before we invented the modern credit market, the stock market ran on fundamentals, things like earnings, things like valuations. And then the credit market came along and starting in the 1990s disrupted that whole process. So now we're in the third modern credit boom. The first one lasted from 1991 through 2000. Then we had a financial disaster. The second one went from 2004 to 2007. Then we had another financial disaster. And then we launched another one in 2009. And all this daisy chain is our public pensions needing to make outsized returns. They have become the dominant global investor. Our pensions were only about 60% of GDP in 84. Now they're 120% of GDP. That's massive, spectacular growth. There's nothing on earth that's grown that fast from such a high base. So they're the dominant global investor, but they're so underfunded they need to make 7.5%.
Need to make 7.5%. Need to make 7.5%. I don't really see that happening. But anyway, this gentleman, hang on. He is Brian Reynolds, former chief market strategist at Rosenblatt Securities, and he's talking on about pensions with Real Vision. So that was one thing he had to say. Here's another thing.
The 7%, 7.5% they need to make. That's the difference between what their governors and their legislatures have funded them at versus the promises they've made to our public sector workers, police officers, firefighters, teachers. Most state governments tend to work the same, so they all tend to have that same gap. And that gap works out to be 7.5%, which is crazy because most interest rates are much, much lower than that. So that they really have to push the envelope in terms of what they invest in to try and get that. And you would think they would be in stocks because pensions should be long-term oriented. But most pension boards are police officers, teachers, firefighters, and politicians. They have a short-term focus, and so they invest in the credit market. They started doing it in the 1990s. The most famous credit fund they hired was John Merriweather's Long-Term Capital Management. But it wasn't just him, it was thousands and thousands of other credit funds that mimicked him. These pensions will hire these credit funds, they'll put money to work on an aggressive leverage basis to try and get that 7.5% yield they need. And when they buy these record amounts of corporate bonds from companies, that puts cash on the corporate balance sheets. Modern CEOs are incented to get their stock price up. So they take this unlimited money that comes from our pensions via these credit funds and use it to buy back their stock. That's a daisy chain of financial engineering. That's what happened in the 90s. It's what happened from 03 to 07. And it's what's been going on since 2009.
Buying back stock. uh, it's incredible, right? What's going on? I mean, is it any wonder now why we're underfunded? Governments are giving it away to Wall Street. Wall Street's buying back their own stocks again. So how are you going to win? How are you going to win with pensions? But hey, a pension is a promise, right? We can always rely on a promise. One more thing Brian Reynolds had to say. Elbow Sanchez, have a safe trip, buddy. One more thing Brian Reynolds had to say. If your blood's not boiling yet, better take your high blood pressure pills. Here we go.
40 years ago, in the 70s, the average company was highly rated, AA or AAA rated from a credit standpoint. Now we've added so much leverage in the last 40 years that the average credit quality has gone down to just above junk. That's how much we've levered up corporate America. And if you look at a chart of who's been buying stocks over the last few decades, there's been money going to ETFs, but that's come at the expense of mutual funds. Pensions, both state and private pensions, have been large sellers. So investors as a whole have really done nothing these last 3 decades. The buybacks have taken an increasing share to the point where they're almost 100% of the buyers of the last decade. In other words, investors have done nothing on a net basis for 10 years. Yeah, they put money into ETFs at the expense of active products. And the result is this daisy chain of money coming in from taxes to pensions, going into credit, which is then used to artificially push up stock prices.
Artificially push up stock prices. Here we go again. Question is your pension still safe? This is an older article, came out in 2009, but already it was an issue since 2009. Let me see if I can get this a bit bigger for you guys. Okay, so is your pension still safe? John Sidorenko has hit a few speed bumps along his route to retirement. In December of 2007, Delphi Corp, the financially troubled auto parts manufacturer, shuttered the Columbus, Ohio plant where Sidorenko had worked as an engineer for nearly 31 years. This man spent 31 years of his life there. That was 2 years before he had planned to retire, but thanks to a comfortable nest egg, his pension plan, his 401k plan, and the fact that his wife, Betsy, continues to work as a school administrator, Sidorenko, at 55 at that time, could afford to take an early retirement while many of his colleagues searched for new jobs. Then Delphi froze his pension plan, meaning the current employers will keep whatever benefits they have earned so far, but will not accrue future benefits. Fortunately, Sidorenko's monthly pension checks haven't been affected, at least not yet. We're assuming his full benefits is safe for now. Let's see. But if there is a future reduction in Sidorenko's pension benefit, he might have to draw more money out of his personal savings. Okay, so here we go. Most private sector defined benefit pension plans are insured by the Pension Benefit Guarantee Corps, PBGC. Remember those 4 letters now, PBGC. which is funded by insurance premiums paid by employers. If a company's pension plan becomes underfunded and the company cannot make up the shortfall, the PBGC takes over and continues to pay retirement benefits up to the limits set by law, which are adjusted each year. They adjust this each year. For a plan that ends in 2009, the maximum guaranteed pension benefit for a 65-year-old is $54,000 a year. It's substantially less for those who retire at younger ages. Retirees are entitled to no more than the maximum amount for their age in the year the plan ends. Those retiring later can receive up to the maximum amount for their age at retirement based on PBGC limits in effect in the year the plan ended. So in 2007, the PBGC took over more than 100 insolvent pension plans. The agency says that more than 80% of retirees in PBGC administered plans receive their full benefits, but if Delphi terminates its pension plan, meaning if a company terminates its pension plan and turns it over to PBGC, you could lose a chunk of your pension check that exceeds the PBGC limit. So hang on, bear with me now. Kudla, not sure, well, whose clients include current and former employees of General Motors, Ford, Chrysler, and Delphi, says he has been inundated with questions about the safety of their pension plans. Some people think if their company goes bankrupt, they lose their pensions. But traditional defined benefit pension plans are protected by ERISA, the Employee Retirement Income Security Act of 74, in the event of financial distress. Kudla explains creditors have no claim on the assets in a company's traditional pension plan or 401k plan. Let me see if I can find that one more. There's one more thing in here. Um, let's see. Uh, Market crash is only part of the pension funding problem. The Pension Protection Act of 2006 reshaped the funding rules for employers who sponsored defined benefit plans. These rules, which required employers to increase contributions to meet more stringent pension funding targets, took effect in 2008 for single employer plans, just as companies were facing enormous challenges to keep their businesses afloat. Okay, so before Congress adjourned, again, this was back in 2009 now, but it kind of sets things up. Approved relief for employers. Congress approved relief for employers. What about the pensioners? Allowing them an additional few years to meet pension funding targets, but it did not alter new restrictions that prohibit underfunded pension plans from paying some or all of retirees' benefits as a lump sum. In the plans that permit lump sum distributions, roughly half of all plans, more than 70% of eligible retirees choose the lump sum instead of a monthly annuity payment, according to the Research Institute. The new law is intended to shore up pensions and put an end to underfunded plans, says Brett Goldstein, a pension administrator and president of the pension department consulting firm in Plainview, New York. However, in a time of financial crisis, the law is actually hurting employees who are relying on their pension as the primary source of retirement. Now, here's the kicker. Under the new law, if a pension plan does not have enough money, underfunded, to pay at least 80% of plan obligations, we just saw a whole lot of states who are less than 80%, right? So just to kind of get a relative idea of this, then payout restrictions apply. In that case, retiring employees would be allowed to take only half of their pension as a lump sum. The other half would be distributed as a monthly annuity check. If the plan is less than 60% funded, retirees cannot take a lump sum distribution at all and must accept monthly checks, except when lump sums are $5,000 or less, and restrictions may not apply to some collectively bargained multi-employer plans until 2010. Well, we're past 2010 now, right? So this is what's this is what's going on. If it's less than 80%, we're going to see a reduction. And my concern is, this is a micro view, but on the macro view, if we look at all these states, if they're less than 80%, I mean, you can kind of see where this plan may unfold into states that are less than 80%. So, this is pretty severe. And it's going to affect us as we get older, right? And this is a case study. So here we are in let me see, where's the date for this again? We're in 2019 now, okay? So now this is today. So for 30 years, Mary Fry's husband Virgil worked in construction, real people, okay, real people. The pension he earned, 3,500 per month, was guaranteed. A pension is a promise to continue for Mary if he died first. But starting in April, 3 years after Virgil's death from cancer, Mary's payments were permanently reduced by more than half to 1,514 per month. It was quite a shock, she says. She's 72. She lives in Western Ohio. She's a cancer survivor. It's worrisome, and I don't think I need worries in my life right now. Mary Fry, she's one of tens of thousands of workers, retirees, and spouses whose pensions have been cut over the past 2 years because of growing weakness in the U.S. pension system. 1 million more workers and their families are at risk of suffering the same fate in the coming years. It's a huge crisis. At issue are multi-employer. Remember this word now, multi-employer, because this is where a lot of companies are at. Multi-employer pension plans. Unlike most private pension plans, which benefit only employees of a single company, multi-employer plans cover pools of union members working for different companies, each of which helps fund the shared plan. These plans are failing at an alarming rate. About 12% of workers with vested multi-employer pensions are in plans expected to run dry within 20 years, and the plan's weak safety net is getting weaker. The Federal Pension Benefit Guaranty Corporation, PBGC, there's that acronym again, which insures private plans, pays no more than $12,870 per year to a 30-year worker whose multi-employer plan has failed. Plus, PBGC's fund for these plans will likely go broke by 2025. We're 5 years out, 6 years out. Yeah, this is going to be an incredible, dire, hard time. Unfortunately, there are no easy solutions. Declining union membership means that fewer active workers are paying into the plan, the Ponzi scheme, right? Many of their employers in industries such as mining and construction are losing business to non union competitors, so fewer employers are contributing. AARP and other organizations say congressional intervention is necessary to protect workers and retirees in this plan. So, what's the government doing? So, here we have them, older people, ARP, they're saying, hey, we need government to get involved. Do we really? We're going to take a look at that. Let's see. Take a look at some of the comments. Never trust government. Silver Slave 333. Never trust government. Government actually stands for mind control, controlling you, keeping you calm, and working so the banking families can continue. Okay, that's okay. That's some pretty intense stuff. Min Chin Xiao, how you doing? Yeah, but the money you get won't buy you the stuff you will need to live a reasonable life. And that's the thing. I mean, I'm pretty sure a lot of us, we were in our 20s, we got hired by a company. Some financial planner comes in and he tells you if you give up this much of your salary, of your paycheck each week, each 2 weeks, each month, whatever it is, you're going to retire a millionaire. And you're 20 years old and you're thinking, hey, this is great. I'm going to be a millionaire. You go home, run, tell your parents, mom, dad, I'm going to be a millionaire. This, that, this, that. The thing is, you may get that $1 million nominally, but you're never going to be able to buy $1 million worth of things today that you could have back then 20, 30, 40 years ago. Can't we can't fall for that anymore. So let's see, Paul Daish, I can live on 1,000 a month. That's, you know what? I think it depends where you live. I think it's doable. Silver Slave Gold used to be 35 an ounce. Currency is losing purchasing power all the time. That is true. You know, dollar came out in 1913. Today it only has, I think you can only buy like about $3 worth of goods compared to what you could. I mean, you can only buy like 3 cents worth of goods compared to that time when it was a full dollar. It's fiat currencies will lose their value. Let's see. Imagine having to take all of the financial risk where you have no control over financial direction. It's like saying that employers take all the risks, should dictate your. Yeah, yeah. That's a good way to look at it. Uh, Good comment. Yukon Cornelius, like the name. If the government has to get involved with insolvent pension plans, then that means taxpayer bailout. You, my man, are a mind reader. Yukon Cornelius. I think you've hit it on the head. Because right now, what we're seeing is people are looking towards the government. Okay, so what the government do? Recently, government or U.S. House passes a pension bailout as Democrats eye union heavy states for 2020. All right, let's see what this is about. The U.S. House on Wednesday night, which is a week ago, roughly, passed legislation to bolster failing pension funds, an issue that Democrats are hoping will help win over voters in the Midwest union heavy states for the 2020 presidential election. So straight away, my question is this something for the nation, for the people, or is this just for a party to come into power? Okay. The bill would bail out multi-employer. Remember that word? We just went over that word previously, right? The bill would bail out multi-employer pension plans that are on the verge of collapse. They're looking at 2025, right? So yeah, they're on the verge of collapse. The measure would help pension plans sponsored by several employers and managed by a collective bargaining agreement by giving loans to insolvent plans. Giving loans, where's that money going to come from? Giving loans to insolvent plans so they can continue to distribute the promised retirement benefits. There's that word again, promise. A pension is a promise. The legislation passed 264 to 169 with bipartisan support. Legislation HR 397 is a top priority for Ways and Means Chairman Richard Neal, Massachusetts, which is the state that's getting in trouble, Massachusetts Democrat, who has been anxious to address pension security since he took over the committee this year. More than 10% of the 10 million beneficiaries of these plans won't receive their full benefits, according to the American Academy of Actuaries. It's all coming ahead, okay? The bill, which would aid truck drivers, iron welders, construction workers, and other industries, helps bolster Democrats' case as they look to win back Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan, states Trump won in 2016 in the 2020 presidential election. All right, so pensions are being politicized. Not good. That's their motive, to win back states. You need those areas to win the presidency, said Brad Bannon, a Democratic political consultant. There is a cloud of uncertainty hanging over blue collar, non educated workers in those states. They are worried about the cost of healthcare, pensions, and economic security. Democrats are hoping to repeat their successful 2018 midterm strategy of focusing on healthcare and worker benefits by addressing pension insolvency. Pandering. Lawmakers are helping a group that easily draws sympathy, workers whose benefits are cut after they've retired. You know, y- you got to wonder about this, right? Who doesn't want to protect the pensions of those who have earned them? Of course, everybody wants to protect pensions of people who earn them, right? But the question is, how are you doing it? Are we doing this the right way, or are we trying to hide it in a sewage bill again, right? Multi-employer pension bailout plan is fatally flawed. So here we go again. Here's the other half of it. Multi-employer pension plans in the US are in dire financial straits. It's estimated that the retirement plans of workers and retirees covered by these plans in the mining, retail trade, construction, transportation, and other such sectors face a $54 billion shortfall today. If that weren't serious enough, when the accounting is done properly using the same standards that are applied to single employer pensions, the system's projected underfunding may exceed 600 billion. Okay, so here's the gist of it. The Butch Lewis Act, or BLA bill, currently before Congress, named after that late Teamster, it's a band aid. It's not a solution. Most importantly, it fails to fix the multi employer underfunding problem while actually digging the hole deeper. The bill would have the federal government lend billions of dollars to multi employer plans to cover their liabilities for all active members, retirees, and deferred vested members. Yes, the money is supposed to be repaid in 30 years with interest, but if the pension plan cannot do so, the bill permits loan forgiveness or refinancing of some as yet unforeseen obligation. This is a plan that leaves the taxpayer on the hook. So here we go. We're on the hook again. This is a plan that leaves the taxpayer on the hook of an unmeasured but likely very large size. Additionally, when the PBGC was established in 74, it was, by design, not backed by the full faith and credit of the U.S. taxpayer. By contrast, the Butch Lewis Act imposes a dramatic reordering of the private sector claims against federal taxpayers. It's getting pretty heavy now, right? We're on the hook. We're on the hook again for pensions that a promise that our government made that they simply cannot keep. The more interested getting reelected, I suppose, right? Uh, let's see. Jason Bone, Dignity, thanks. Okay. Uh, Digger D, I figure some person goes through all the trouble to stream. At least I can do is. Hey, thanks. We appreciate that. Appreciate the thumbs up. I mean, I just found it interesting when I took a little bit deeper look into the pensions, how bad it is, and how sinister it is for legislators to try and slip things in different bills, a sewage bill or another bill that basically puts us on the hook without us knowing. This is where we're at today, right? Tony Robinson is going to drop like we have never seen before this time. I fear for all our children, and that is what it's all about. It's about the children. It's about the grandkids. It's things are going to change, guys. And whether we can stop it or not, I'm not sure. I think, in all honesty, I'd have to say no. But what we can do is we have to be our own central bank at this point. We have to buy things like silver, like gold, things that we can consider that might be good, might have a good trade value at some point. Um, this current system cannot last. Current monetary system cannot last. It's going to go into a new monetary system, and whatever it is, we don't know what it's going to be, but we do know there's going to be a transition. And as one of the articles just said, history tells us transitions basically they're never nice. So that's something we got to understand. So underfunded pensions are basically a disaster. And if you guys stuck with me so far, and if you're not upset yet, I'm gonna get you. I'm gonna get you more upset. No, not upset, but it's something we need to understand. So we're already unfunded, right? Here we go. Chinese investment puts U.S. government retirement funds at risk. What are we doing? As the trade standoff with China continues and the protests in Hong Kong escalate, the Chinese Communist Party's aggressive tactics are becoming clearer. Okay, mind you, this is a little bit biased article, but the main thing we want to understand is where the money is going. For example, since 2013, China has been building and militarizing artificial islands. Okay, we know these things. Uh, okay, let me get to the point here. Uh, Despite all these dangers, a federal agency is seeking to put billions of dollars in federal retirement funds at risk by opening them up to Chinese influence and investment. Um, that's pretty scary here. The Federal Retirement Thrift Investment Board, FRTIB, decided in 2017 to shift almost 50 billion of US government pensions to mirror the MSCI All Country World Index, to which China has access. Previously, this 50 billion worth of assets mirrored an index that excluded China. The MSCI Europe, Australasia, Far East Index. The FRTIB, which oversees the thrift savings plan that included about 578 billion worth of assets, has moved more than 5 million participants, intends to make the shift in 2020. We're already there. Sorry about that. Let me get this. Okay. Many companies listed on the MSCI ACWI are known bad actors. They're not giving you honest statements. Um, that actively pose serious risk to the U.S. national security, violate human rights, and engage in inadequate financial disclosure. Senators Marco Rubio and Jean Shaheen recently submitted a letter to the chairman of the FRTIB urging an immediate reversal of the board's wrong headed decision. Rubio and Shaheen wrote that the decision would result in China based companies receiving U.S. investment, even though many of these companies are involved um, in espionage and things like that. Uh, but here's the kicker: this MSCI ACWI, for example, includes Avi China Industry and Technology Limited, a company that develops and produces aircraft and missiles um, for their military. And there's one part though I can't seem to find it. Oh, here we go. So this fund is going over to China basically, and these are only a few examples of the igrig, I need my coffee. Sorry, guys. Abuses committed by some of the companies that MSCI saw fit to include in its All Country World Index, apparently without performing any national security minded diligence. There is no justification for using the retirement funds. Okay, we've been talking about all private sector this time, but using the retirement funds of U.S. federal government employees and our U.S. armed forces members to advance the very security and human rights violations that our country is working to stop. So, I mean, I think it doesn't matter if you agree or not with some U.S. policies. It's the country's done some good, some bad, but the point is now they're putting the service members' pensions um, overseas, and that's a tough one to swallow. That's a tough one to swallow. So my question really, if pensions cannot be paid or are greatly reduced, really, what are things going to look like? I mean, older people are going to have to come back out of work. They're going to be working till basically basically working for the rest of their life. Um, it, it's not a good situation, and again, we all need to be our own bank. We can't depend on any type of government promise. Can't depend on a promise from a government. Um, so anyway, I'll take a look at a few more of your comments, and then I'll be heading out. Let's see. Digger D, I was in Israel in '86 with the UN. The inflation rate was 400%, and they did a new currency issue exchange of 1,001. Man, what was that like? Jack Robert, retirement funds have to put more money into bonds by law, so not productive. Uh, yeah, that yeah, agree with you there. It's not going to be productive, especially if they're trying to get the 7.5% that it needs. It's not going to happen. Let's see, 1,200 shekels pizza and pizza and beer. Sounds good right now. Tiger roll. Many interest rates are below zero now around the world. Soon the same for U.S. I wonder. Yeah, I think it's pretty much accepted we're going to be headed to zero. I think the question is more if we're going to go into to negative. Um, that's going to be a big issue as well. There's so many things on the plate right now. Again, I if you keep thinking about these things, it can really raise your heartbeat a bit. It can really get you hot under the collar. But you gotta let that part of it go. I mean, of course, understand where we are in the world today, what things look like. I mean, where we may be headed to, what things may look like. Just understand that part of it, and once you do, you can kind of lessen your bite on it, and not relax, but you can ease the tension and just understand the things that you need to do, and a lot of those things again, as mentioned, a lot of people they do say gold, they do say silver, they do say real estate, um, just to be in a position where as we transition from the current monetary system to a new monetary system, that you'll be okay during the transition. And that's really the key, because once the transition is done and that new currency comes in, I don't think we're really going to have a choice after that. And if we're not going to have a choice after that, then let's position ourselves the best way we can during the transition, so that when we come out of it, we come out of it ahead. And that's probably the key. So that transition is, I think it's everything. So let's see. Peter Wilson, trillions in negative rates are great for gold and silver. Yeah. Opportunity costs are, yes, negated. Excuse me. Let's see. Sovereign borders. Look, you're dealing with people that have no moral integrity. They're reprobates. Yeah, I think that's a word we are going to hear more and more as time goes by. Let's see. Jason Bone to Yukon Cornelius. Yeah. Okay. Michael Artero, I would like to see you interview John Adams from Australia about the 100,000 cash transactions ban. You know, we do see a lot of times, and I think it was even from Australia, where they have a tough time trying to make large purchases by wire transaction. We've had we know stories of people where they need to withdraw a pretty good amount, and they are delayed and delayed. I'm going to say weeks before the bank will actually give them their money. Trying to get money out of a bank, it can be difficult at times, or it's for some people it's getting to be a little bit more difficult. Um, so it's something to keep in mind, that bank transactions may get to a point where they're not as easy as you think it should be or could be. Let's see. Philip Quinn, a lot of people are going to be poor, very, very poor. Philip, it's unfortunate. Uh, I'd have to agree. It's unfortunate. The thing is, if you're financially challenged before the transition, I think that challenge is always going to be there. Uh, Guys who do have a lot of money, unless they've really put it in things that can get through that transition and to the other side, they're going to take a hit. I told you the story about my 401k when 9/11 happened. I lost a few tens of thousands in my 401k. Wasn't happy about it, but it goes to show that these same markets that can push your 401k or wherever up, it's the same market that can take it down. And that's the reason why we need to get out, or we should get out of paper and into something that's a store of value. Whether it's the gold, the silver, or hold it in some real estate. But I don't really think it's a good idea to completely stay in paper, because we know paper is that's what's really gonna take a hit. Let's see. A BB gun might go well. BB gun, yeah. I haven't played with one since a long time ago. It's like going to a grocery store without food. Yeah. Let's see. Joey Vargas, would you only stick to physical PMs or also stocks in mining and gold ETFs? Well, for me personally, I stay with PMs. And as you mentioned before, when you go into miners, you're you have to factor in management. You're no longer just based on the metal. Um, your price is going to be based on management as well. I mean, it depends what management does. So you need to know management. And again, for me, the way I feel is, I don't want to be holding too much paper of anything when things start to go bad. I mean, I think any stock, when things start to go bad, people are going to want to cash out, and it's just going to go lower and lower and lower. I mean, it may be an opportunity to buy, but it just transitions from paper to paper. I'd much rather transition from paper to metal, and that's just my opinion on it. Um, let's see. Okay, John Adams. We'll keep that in mind. We'll look for him. Nerf guns. The best way is to get unbanked. Yep, that's a good one, Yukon. Just it's good to have cash with you, as opposed to all of it in the bank. I mean, as Brent Johnson pointed out, the same like paper contracts for gold is much more than the actual physical gold. Well, the amount of money, whether it's digital or printed, is a lot more than the actual physical that's out there in the world. So you got to imagine, if there's some type of bank run, you're not going to be able to get to your cash, or you're going to be limited to X amount of cash a day. We know these things happen already. So if you have it with you, if you have your cash with you, then it's one problem you can eliminate if things really 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 go bad. But I think that's it. I mean, I had you guys for an hour and a half. Took up a lot of your time. The point being, um, a pension is a promise, and if you have pensions out there, these are the things that are on the table right now, and you need to know about. And if you have a 401k, same thing. Try and do look into a precious metals type of IRA, where you can roll your 401k over. Again, the point being is, if we can, the less exposed we are to paper during a crisis, probably the better. So with that, I'll end it there. You guys take care. You have a good week ahead. Um, Keep all of you guys in mind. Wish you all the best, and as always, saddle up for what's coming ahead and silver up. We'll see you next week. Take care.